we went in and we said, what are the core attributes that we have? What are the things that make us great? And how can we deliver those same experiences in this virtual world in the metaverse?
Welcome to This is Digital, a podcast brought to you by West Monroe. Join us as we talk to leading experts about bringing the digital mindset to your organization.
Welcome to This is Digital, a podcast about leading with digital to win in the marketplace. I'm your host, Rissa Redden, partner and chief marketing officer here at West Monroe. On This is Digital, we talk to experts about how to go about not just doing digital, but being digital. We share stories of digital successes and digital failures. I'm thrilled to be joined on today's episode by Brian Kaminsky, Chief Data Officer and President of Revenue Strategies for iHeartMedia. Thank you so much for joining me today, Brian.
Thanks, Rissa. Pleasure to be here.
Brian, I would love for you to talk to our audience a little bit about what your role at iHeartMedia entails.
Sure, happy to. It's a bit of a cross-section across a lot of different parts of our business. I joined iHeart about 9 years ago. I originally came in to be the chief operating officer of our digital business. And while we were there early on, looking at transforming the way we marketed our product to the advertising community, we started to do a whole bunch of research on who our digital users were. And we realized really quickly that our digital users were our broadcast users. They are the same people. And in fact, most of our users are motivated to come to the iHeart Digital product by our over-the-air personalities, by the programming. And we had this great set of insights that became a product that actually powered the sale of broadcast radio with insights that came from digital. And a completely new role was born for me within iHeart, which is this role of transforming and modernizing the way we market audio, broadcast radio, the streaming version of that, podcasting, using data and insights and the tactics that we would use in any digital campaign against all three of our assets and our focus on linear leading the way. And so my role became about advertising technology, about data, about the application of that data across the business, and that's how you have someone who is both the chief operating officer as well as someone who is responsible for our revenue strategies.
What was your path to this role prior to iHeartMedia?
I've been in digital a very long time. I actually am what I refer to as a lapsed salesperson. I was an account executive at Yahoo going back into the late 90s and took on a variety of business and ad operations roles over the years and made the jump over to working in the news business and was at a company called Reuters, which most people are familiar with who were, kind of news junkies. I was at the Huffington Post for a while. And while we were there, we sort of transformed the news industry and the way news was consumed, very big focus on social and sharing. And this opportunity at iHeart came up to sort of do that same reimagining in audio and with radio. And that's why I made the jump. So sales, ad operations, the news business, a lot of reimagining of traditional paradigms, and here we are.
Well, and it's fascinating to me how much of your experience is digital and rooted in digital, that digital for some is new, but it sounds like you were really there from the get-go.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that was most interesting about being at Yahoo in those days was that we were literally just making it up. I actually had, one or two jobs before that, which were in traditional media because there was no digital media. So of course my job was in traditional media. So I come from a planning background. I planned traditional television, syndicated television and local television. And what we wanted to do early on was just make sure that people got the value proposition of data and insights, but didn't forget the tactics that made marketing using these big, powerful mass reach media so effective in the first place.
iHeartMedia launched an incredible new offering this year. And Brian, I would love for you to talk to us a little bit about it. But it's iHeartLand, and it's really pushing the boundaries of how companies bridge the physical and digital experience. Could you talk a little bit about iHeartLand?
It's a tremendous innovation. It's a world where, you need a glossary for a lot of folks to actually understand what it is you've done. But it really is very much in keeping with what iHeart's plan has been all along, which is, look, we're a mass reach media. We reach 90 some odd percent of the US population. Our stated goal is to be sort of the companion, the friend for every single person in this country, to keep them connected, feeling a part of their local communities and part of a larger collective as well. And to do that, we need to be wherever the consumer is, wherever they want to listen, however they want to listen. We have to be there for them. That's our mission. And so, yes, we're there in their car when they turn on their AM, FM radio. We're there when they turn on their smart speaker and want to listen. We're on their phone, obviously. We're on hundreds of different consumer electronic devices. Everything from smart TVs to, the sort of silliness, but actual usage being there of appliances like refrigerators and other things like that. But the metaverse was a place where there is already a growing number of consumers, of listeners, of fans, and they're gathering in the gaming communities. They're gathering in places like Fortnite. They're gathering in places like Roblox. And those are entertainment spaces. They're worlds. They're virtual worlds. And it's more than just the gaming that's going on there. There's communities that are building. There's a social life that's building there. There's a sense of style. There's a sense of connection. And entertainment and music and the things that we bring over the radio make sense to be there. And so it was a natural for us. It was a world where we could build an entertainment venue, right? Specifically for the types of artists that we are connected to. And those artists include everybody from Charlie Puth to people who produce local podcasts. And so we built these spaces, this iHeartLand, which would remind people very much of going to a music festival, only doing it in a virtual world, and have made those virtual experiences feel very connected to the universe that we built them in, right? So we don't want them to feel disconnected from Fortnite or for Roblox for that matter. But we also want it to still feel like a music festival. And so we built these places, and we feel it's a great environment to bring the community together. I think sometimes people associate those gaming environments with very young audiences, but what we thought and found to be the case would be that if we brought in multi-generational appealing talents, that parents would join their kids and take part and watch and listen and be in that festival along with them. And it was something that could A, bring families together, B, connect that community a little bit more meaningfully, and also just not to beat around the bush, but to make sure that we had built an environment that was right for sponsorship, right for advertising, because that is the business we're in. We're about creating these connections and leveraging our relationships with the artists, whether they're DJs or big stars, and the fans, so that marketers and advertisers have permission to talk to them and to share their message with them. And we're not a big subscription business. We're a mass media. We're free to use, and that was the way we wanted the experience in iHeartLand to be. And I think I know, based upon the numbers that we've gotten, some of which I wish I could share, but they're somewhat proprietary, but we've actually had really amazing engagement. Some of the most successful events that have actually ever been held in the metaverse have been iHeart events. The Charlie Puth one, which was the kickoff event that we had, most notably, really just was a huge success. And we had a marketing partner with us, with State Farm, and it went extremely well.
That's fantastic. I did grow up in Bloomington, Illinois, where State Farm is headquartered. So I always have a soft spot in my heart for State Farm. I know that there is what you can share and what you cannot share as far as the success of the event. But how do you think about measurement of connection, or how do you think about the connection, the community that you create, and how do you assess that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the metaverse and in the virtual world, it's a little different than in the real world, although some of the same rules apply, right? How many people showed up at the event? How long did they stay? Did they engage with the things so we built a bunch of digital objects I'm hesitant to use the word NFT because they're not all fungible tokens, but they are digital objects that you can get and you can put in a wallet and they're yours and they're fun to collect and sometimes you can redeem them. Are they all NFTs? Not necessarily. Some of them are single use. But we built a number of these different digital objects. We built a number of little, we'll call them micro games or micro experiences that were brand relevant and artist relevant. And we measured the engagement and we ran surveys. Like there was a lot of, good old fashioned kind of, traditional research that went into it. And some of it was based on building out cool stuff that, didn't exist before. But for us, a lot of it was just the traditional paradigm of like, look how many people showed up, look how many people listened, how long did they stay, how much engagement did they have? And when we asked them what their experience was it a positive one? And that is how we were able to measure it. We also, we have the uptake of people who used those digital objects and engaged with those digital games. And some of this feels a little bit like, I'm going to use the term, it's a gambling term, it's a proposition bet, right? It's not the main bet, but it's the secondary bet you might make. It's really because we're just starting out there. I don't think we know exactly where this is going to shake out, but we do know that it is a place where people are gathering, where they are engaged, paying attention, enjoying themselves, maybe overcommitted, who knows? And we have the opportunity to add to that experience for them in a positive way, extend our brand, and hopefully create a really compelling dynamic for them and for the advertiser.
It reminds me a little bit of when you think about a university experience, that there is the benefit of being in the classroom and what you learn, but there's also the benefit of the community that you create and the connections that you build. And it sounds somewhat similar, that there's the entertainment that you engage with, but then there's also the forum that you become a part of or the community that you become a part of. Is that fair?
I think that's very true. I don't like to think of these things as live events necessarily. iHeartLand is a permanent destination. It has a regular schedule of events and things that are going to go on there. And some of them will be big, artist related. Some of them will be small podcast events. Some of them might even be, business events, or think of a virtual conference. Maybe not in Fortnite and Roblox, but I think that's where we're going. Those things are community events. And it is a chance for us to participate in those communities, help expand their reach, give them a sense of permanence as well, right? Because if you go to an event and that event is essentially over and they take down the stage and they take down the tent and people move on, then it's over and done with. And all you have left are images or videos. These things still exist. And because they are virtual, we do have the ability to give people the opportunity to go back and re-experience things. And I think one of the things you'll find is that as programming develops in these spaces, they'll start to be a literal historical archive. It's probably not a great way to describe it, where people can go back and see the performances that happened there before. And I think it gives them a sense of permanence and a sense of being a destination as opposed to just an event.
And with iHeartLand, were there any surprises along the way with the launch?
Yeah, I think it was the number of actual parents or people that fell outside of the demographics that we would have associated with both Roblox and with Fortnite. It implied, because we don't know this definitively, but some of the research supports it, that families showed up, that kids told their parents a thing was happening, or parents heard about a thing that was happening because we promoted it on the radio, and they gave them an opportunity to say to their kids, whether it was a little kid or a teenager, I heard that this thing is happening on that thing that you do. You do Fortnite, right? I heard on the radio, this is happening in Fortnite. We should check that out together. And that actually happened. And I was skeptical at first and was really pleasantly surprised to see that was the way it transpired. Now, some of what I'm saying may be conjecture. I don't know that that's exactly how that went down, but the net is it was a multi-generational experience that was there. And there were plenty of people that fall outside of the normal demographics of those two destinations.
And what can companies learn from iHeartLand? What is the lesson for others in your experience?
iHeart's a very unique company. So I don't know how other publishers or other content creators or other people who are responsible for the event business, I don't know that they can necessarily learn from what iHeart did, except to say that innovation and new environments are things that need to be experimented with, but you need to hold to the kind of core value proposition that you have as the company. As a company, like we didn't go in and build out a game, although there were gaming components. We went in and we said, what are the core attributes that we have? What are the things that make us great? And how can we deliver those same experiences in this virtual world in the metaverse? From an advertising perspective, I think the thing to learn there is that more innovative spaces, more challenging spaces are places where you can experiment, provided you have a good partner. I wouldn't wade into those places, without someone who's got discipline, who doesn't have a plan, who hasn't thought about the ramifications and doesn't have, a certain amount of control over the experience that's about to happen. But if you have a good partner like that, and there are more than just iHeart out there that fit that bill, but these are places that are worth experimenting with, because otherwise we'll end up, with the same old approaches to advertising, and we'll miss an opportunity to sort of move things forward and create new and I think more compelling ways to engage with a totally different generation of consumers.
Well, and there's certainly no lack of skepticism as it relates to the metaverse. What's your perspective as it relates to the skeptics that are out there?
I think a lot of people are confusing crypto and the metaverse. I don't think they are the same thing. I think they're related to each other, and I think they're a little bit hand in glove. But I think the metaverse is something that's been around for a long time, both from almost from a science fiction perspective. People have been, imagining this world of the metaverse, which just tells me that human beings want it. They want this otherworldly experience. They want to separate themselves from their reality in a way that's entertaining and fun and gives them a chance to be someone different or have a different experience. So I don't think there's any question but that the metaverse is going to be a thing. Whether or not, crypto and Web3 and NFTs and the blockchain are necessarily the things that are going to power it, I think that's up in the air. I think the concept of a tokenized community is a good one. It really just boils down to the things that I said before, which is you have to have a reason to be there. The Bored Ape Yacht Club, very cool. I don't know how long that lasts or whether or not that's a great experience or what it could become in the future. It's a great idea. iHeart and the connection that we have with the artist community, making music, making great listening content, like that's a natural, and that exists already in a virtual space on our phones or on our smart speakers. And so seeing those things come to life in a world where people can be more experiential and more a part of a community, I think that's a natural. So I have no skepticism about that at all. I think it's just a question of how quickly does it happen and how thoughtful are we in the marketing world about setting up experiences that are positive for both the people who are essentially underwriting those experiences and the fans and the users, the listeners, the participants.
I think it's fascinating to think about science fiction as the first iteration of the metaverse. And, it then takes me down the path of, well, where did Dungeons and Dragons play a role in, furthering that? That idea is not a new one of using your imagination and creating, new worlds has been around for a long, long time. And
a tabletop map and some miniatures is very much the first iteration of the metaverse. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it is fascinating. And then there's video games. Mm-hmm. And then there's the movies about people getting sucked into video games.
For sure.
And then there's Fortnite and a Charlie Puth concert.
That's fascinating.
That was that's a pretty straight line set of connections there for sure.
Now, when you think about iHeartLand and the launch, I mean, I think to be the first to do anything is challenging and takes a certain level of confidence and investment. How did you decide that this was a go, or how did you decide that this was worthy of your time and energy?
I mean, it really does boil down to the fact that it was a natural for us. We are in this entertainment world. It's what we do. We, again, put simply, we connect fans and artists, and there were plenty of fans that were in these places. We had a growing sense of demand for innovation, for doing things that were new and different and interesting and challenging and brand building, frankly. And once there was that meeting of we have expertise in the thing that is most important here, which is not necessarily the building of iHeartLand, but the populating it with great content. That's the hard part. Anybody can build a digital universe. It's filling it with great content and a fantastic consumer experience. We knew we could do that. So it was really just a question of bringing our basic skill set to the table, matching it up with consumer demand that, sort of had raised its hand, and then saying, all right, let's just go out and partner with the best folks that we can to build this experience, this destination. So it was actually those three things, right? Did we have the technological ability to build it? Well, not in-house, but we could find partners who could. Was there demand for it? Definitely. Lots of advertisers were expressing interest in the metaverse, in Web3, in any, innovation. And did we have confidence that we could build or provide a great entertainment experience? Those three things we checked each one of those boxes, and that's what gave us the confidence to go ahead and do it.
With your focus on data, how do you think about data monetization more broadly?
I mean, I kind of don't think about the concept of data monetization. I think about the best ways to package up my audiences for advertisers, and I use data to create those audience packages. So we don't sell data as a starting point. When we do share data with third parties, we do it under our terms of service. People can opt in and opt out. We do it essentially for ad effectiveness and attribution, not for reuse in some retargeting campaign somewhere. But I think what data tells us is a tremendous amount about the consumer, about their interests. And I always go to one really obvious example for us. So this was years ago. It's almost 8 years ago when we first came up with this approach to taking digital data and using it to add context and detail to who our broadcast radio listening audience was. We had big car company, makes pickup trucks, doesn't matter who they are, that was extraordinarily, almost to a point of myopia, focused on country music. Their television commercials were all country focused, very much Americana, and it made a tremendous amount of sense. And they came to iHeart and they said, we want to be on your country stations. Little known fact, not that many country stations. Lots of country fans, not that many country radio stations out there. Many more pop radio stations than there are country, even though country's, extraordinarily important, tons of listening, not as much reach. And when we ran the math and we said, look, our analysis, our product, our model, we call it smart audio, which is essentially a data modeling approach to taking digital data, applying it to broadcast radio. We have a ton of people who are in market for pickup trucks, listening to urban, listening to news talk, listening to gospel, listening to pop music. Don't you want those consumers? Are you interested in being on country stations because it fits the campaign you're working on, or do you want to sell trucks? And that is really what our approach to using data is. It is to help the advertiser understand where their consumers are and the best way to influence them. And as the data landscape changes and as the types of identifiers are being limited, we're finding new and creative ways to take data in a PII safe, non-used way, modeled, and essentially create cohorts, right? Which has been the tried and true approach to advertising all along. And frankly, what we're finding is that it's just as effective. Because a lot of the signifiers and a lot of the identifiers that we were using, and I don't mean iHeart, I mean the entire digital industry, cookies, mobile ad IDs, those often misrepresented or missed the opportunity to actually take advantage of the consumer behavior that it was essentially capturing. After 15 to 20 days, someone who was a purchase intender is no longer a purchase intender. They're either in or out of that funnel. And those identifiers or those sort of bucketing of those users, those things lasted for 60, 90 days in some cases. Not particularly effective. So I'm really happy with where we've gone in terms of giving power back to the consumer, the user, the fan, to control how their data gets used. I think that we were smart to develop a data modeling, data science capability, because we were a linear media to begin with. Digital's very small. Digital's, 20% of total listening, 17% of total listening. Linear over-the-air broadcast, that's everything else. And so you're really limiting the effectiveness that you can have for an advertiser if you're relying exclusively on one-to-one targeting. Big, broad reach, influencing the concentric circles of the decision makers' decision, sort of research. Like, I'm buying a car. I'm going to ask my spouse. I'm going to ask my kids. I'm going to ask my friends. You want to influence those people too, so that they can influence the ultimate decision maker. And I think that the over investment or the overemphasis on one-to-one targeting missed a lot of that. So I'm very happy to be able to take the data that we have and use it in a more privacy-friendly way, and really, sort of give linear media, big reach media, a chance to compete and punch at its own weight.
Well, and it sounds like also taking data to challenge assumptions.
Yeah,
that it's easy to generalize or make assumptions, but you're really helping companies better understand their target audience and the behaviors and choices. And, to your point, you might have demographic information, but those buying signals change over time, and you could miss a window if you don't have that sense of timing.
Absolutely.
Brian, a question that we like to ask all of our guests is this. What does being digital mean to you?
I think being digital is an extension of who we are. I have a digital life and I have a life that's not digital, right? So quiet moment, sitting downstairs in my kitchen, having lunch with my wife because I happen to be working from home today. That's not a digital experience. But here we are, you're in, I don't know where you are, Chicago? Are you in Chicago? I'm in Vermont.
Chicago.
And it's still very intimate, right? We're having a conversation that's, we're face to face. And I have a digital profile, right? You can go to LinkedIn and you can learn a little bit about me. I have Facebook. I have Instagram. I have a TikTok, but it's completely anonymous. I don't want anyone to have any idea what kind of bizarre stuff I look at on TikTok. It's very strange. I question myself. It's a lot of dogs, though. It's a lot of puppies.
Noted.
Just
Noted.
puppies.
Okay.
No one should know the crush I have on puppies. I have 2 Labradoodles, and any dog that looks like my dog, I'm in love with. It's really a bad habit. I do think that your digital persona and your real life persona, while they are related to each other, I don't know that they're the same thing, which is one of those reasons why I'm not a huge believer ultimately in that, in the power of sort of one-to-one targeting or remarketing or, the value loss associated with cookies. I think a lot of that is BS. I think digital is one of the faces that we present to the world. I think it's fairly well curated for most people. I think it's important. I think it's an extension of our personalities, but it's not definitive.
Well, Brian, it has been a pleasure having you on This is Digital today. I can't wait to see what comes next, and I'll be keeping my eye on iHeartLand to find out. But where can listeners find you to stay connected to what you're up to?
Honestly, the best thing to do is come and find us at iHeartRadio. The best thing to do is go pick your favorite iHeartRadio station and listen there. That would be great for me.
And what's your favorite iHeartRadio station?
I'm a huge fan of the #1 station in New York, Z100. Pop music. It's not necessarily what I listen to personally on my playlists, but it is my favorite radio station. And radio listening, just to make the point, is a little bit different than music collection listening. So I love the personalities, I love the talk, I love the companionship, I love Elvis Duran in the morning and his whole crew, which is a little bit different than my musical tastes. But that's my favorite radio station by far.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Brian. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today.
Pleasure. Thank you, Rissa.
Thanks for listening to This is Digital. If you enjoyed today's show, please follow or subscribe on your preferred podcast app. And don't forget to leave us a review. For more information on This is Digital, visit westmonroe.com/thisisdigital.